Welcome to Language Surfers Podcast, a space with fresh waves for the mind, dedicated to create a platform where professionals from both language industry and academia can share their professional experiences, and where we also explore different career paths at different stages. Hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Language Surfers Podcast. My guest for today is Lee Densmer, and I'm really honored to have her here as a guest because Lee is a professional who has a vast and long experience in the localization industry, but now she's the owner of the Globia Content Marketing. She's working as a consultant. So I don't want to waste a minute of this conversation because I'm just convinced that we're going to have so many details and relevant aspects from her journey. And Lee, thank you so much. And could you please just let us know when and how did you decide to build your career in the localization?
Yes, absolutely. So I was born in Peru. So all that to say that I'm kind of global at the start. Like I'm an American. I was born in Peru, and I understand that my first words were Spanish, something about the dog. So that's where I started, and then studied Spanish through my elementary, high school, and college years. I have a degree in Spanish. So the cultural theme, the language learning, family travel was always a value. So that's been a thread through my life, and it still is. And when you have that foundation and you learn that there's an industry, a billion-dollar industry built around it, the intrigue, the interest is natural. And I've never been a translator because truly I'm not bilingual. I do speak Spanish, but I'm not bicultural. I'm not bilingual. And so my first job, my first professional job, I have a graduate degree in Romance language linguistics. And at that time, I wasn't super sure what I would do with that degree. And when I began looking for work, I found a job as a project manager for a company that supported Hewlett Packard. Well, Hewlett Packard's projects all involve localization. They all involve going global. So I got kind of the first ideas of the industry, my first exposure to the industry. And then after several months, maybe a year in that job, I started working for AlpNet as a project manager for the same client. AlpNet was a company 25 years ago based in Salt Lake, and they were bought by SDL. So you've been in the industry forever if you know who AlpNet is when I say that. So I began working for AlpNet, and then SDL bought them. And for AlpNet, I was a project manager and a client services manager, and that's where I started. That was 23 years ago.
Yeah, and I'm really interested in your capacity to switch roles, but also switching companies, right? Because during your trajectory so far, you've had so many roles. You've got project management, client account management, solutions architect, product marketing manager, content marketing. So many roles. How is that possible? How do you change roles? How do you prepare? How do you get the necessary skills?
Those are 10 questions all at the same time. Let's see. So I started with client services. And the first thing in the localization industry is needing to learn the industry. And that's kind of the springboard for being able to do different things, understanding what the industry is about, what client problems you're solving, the technologies involved, the services involved. And I learned that deeply through client services management. I was involved with their projects back in the day for SDL. I was on site with the client. Like I mentioned, it was Hewlett Packard. And then Micron Technologies. So learning the industry. And after client services, I was able to move into a solution architecture role. And I think at that time I switched to Lionbridge. They had a role for me and determined that we were a good fit, me and them, and I began working there. I worked there for a long time. I think I worked there for about a decade. And began deepening my knowledge about specific solutions for clients. So I was able to learn about localization and solutions as a customer service professional. And then I was able to start building customized solutions. And Hewlett Packard's a pretty mature buyer, so their solutions weren't simple. So that's to say, it wasn't just ever translation. was website localization, software localization, transcreation. And then I was able to step into a role at Lionbridge as a junior architect. And when you're a junior architect, you're writing proposals. You are putting together components of existing products or services into proposals. You're doing RFPs, and you begin to learn. And as you get better, you get more senior roles. So I was an architect for a long time. And then I switched to Moravia, and I was an architect there for a couple of years. And then there was the need at Moravia to start developing new products for big name customers, because this is about 8 years ago, because the standard products didn't really meet their needs. These customers were so advanced and their needs were so complex that they needed customized solutions. So from my architecture role, I stepped into a product marketer role where we were building specific crowdsourcing and on-demand service solutions for specific clients. And from there I started blogging, because I have a background in writing and I like to write. While I was an architect, I also did some blogging for the marketing department. So I got to know the marketing director quite well. That was Lee Safar. He's at Argos now. And he supported me and was thrilled that I was doing some blogging, and eventually, over time, pulled me over to the marketing team, which was an amazing opportunity. But it came from my desire to do different things and to try different things and volunteer in different organizations. So I'm going to give that as a piece of advice. Look to volunteering, contributing in different organizations outside of your own to stretch and grow. So then I began to learn to be a marketer. I began to learn digital marketing, SEO, content marketing, and Libor had me doing a wide variety of different things, and eventually managing the content development and planning. So that is how my career progressed, from learning and doing the next assignment and volunteering the next thing. And it just kind of progressed, and following my interests and realizing, okay, I've learned all that I can from this role, and I would really be well suited for this other role, looking for areas of contribution.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that this spirit of curiosity really, helps you to tailor the professional job as, your interests were being identified, right?
Right. Yeah, and through relationships. So
exactly, networking.
Through networking internally, and it wasn't even as formal as networking. It was just meeting people and collaborating with them and understanding what they needed and learning about what they did, and that building those work relationships is really foundational to getting to try to do new things. If nobody knows you, they don't know you're interested, and they don't know what you can do, and they'll never say, you should talk to Lee about that. She's great at writing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So get out there, right?
Get out there
and express what your interests are, and learn from others if you don't know enough for a specific role. Yeah, I really like that advice. And as you've mentioned so far, you've worked for so many well-known LSPs, right? You've mentioned Lionbridge, RWS, SDL, Moravia. So how is the transition from one company to the other? How was in your case? Is it because you decided to switch, and because maybe you switched roles as well? Or how was it in your case? Was it difficult?
Yeah. No, it wasn't difficult. And in your career, I think we've all experienced it. There comes a time when you've outgrown the role, or the role changes, or you've outgrown the company, and it's natural. I have nothing bad to say about any of those companies. Or a team gets consolidated. There comes a time when you just move on. It's natural. You change a career, you change an employer. And in each time, I either had a contact at that next company, or I reached out on LinkedIn. It was always organic. I didn't ever need to just apply for a job that was online. Not difficult to switch from company to company, because the customer needs and the solutions are very, very similar. there's differences. The technology is different. The vertical focus, gaming versus life sciences versus the verticals are different. So there are differentiators and differences, but the industry is the industry, and you bring all your knowledge about localization and its problems from company to company.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you've already covered part of my next question, like what would be the similarities and differences between the LSPs, right?
Yeah, and it's a great question. And as a marketer to the industry, it is part of my job to help companies see and write about their differentiators. So working at several of them has really helped me understand what's important in the industry and what's important to customers. The differentiators are never things like the number of languages we do or the fact that we customize our solutions. The differentiators are more around the verticals and how we do things, the way technology is used. They're more around the special points of ownership, what a certain company can claim to do differently than other LSPs.
Yeah. I really like that approach. And talking about skills, because I think that one of the highlights in your career is your curiosity, right? And to take the necessary steps to get to where you were, where you wanted, right? But considering the current environment with AI and a lot of, intense impact of the AI, what advice would you have for, I don't know, the younger generation, or maybe even for the seasoned professionals who try to keep up the pace with this AI, and how can they upskill? What advice would you have for them?
It's a really good question. And AI right now is the biggest driver of the need to upskill, for sure. Every role needs to understand how artificial intelligence can ease and smooth and facilitate their role. So let's take, for example, the translator's role. Whereas in the past, translation was about the art and the craft of language. That is still the case, but it's also about data, language data, and large language models and natural language processing and hardcore computer computational linguistics. So a translator who aspires to work for one of these big companies and do translation at scale needs to understand the tools and how they work and how AI contributes to translation. That is what's going to keep you employed and keep you current. So for a response to AI, mentally shifting from the role of a translator, in the artistic sense, to a language data, I'm trying to think of the right term, a language data specialist, a language data expert.
Yeah. And what about content writing? How is the AI impacting?
It's quite profound. I use AI for research and generating ideas and for fine-tuning. So I use it to aggregate or summarize data and do research. I use it for ideas. So I have this target client with this need. What should I write about for them? And editing. So in every case, I use it to push the work along and gain efficiency. But every time I've tried to write a paragraph with AI, I have to change it so much that I could have just done it from scratch. Now, I do believe that with good prompting, with refined prompting and mature prompting, it's going to get pretty good, and we're going to be able to create content with AI that only needs some revision. So I am always experimenting with AI tools. I'm studying how other people use it. I'm bringing that advice to my clients. You should consider this and you should never touch that. So as a content marketer, as an employee, you have to be on top of it. If AI scares you, you need to wake up.
Definitely. Yeah.
And figure it out, because it's here to stay.
Yeah, definitely. That's the gold advice from today. If you're scared,
stop.
Yeah.
Stop hiding your head in the sand.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. And also from your career, because I think it's important. The fact that after working in different LSPs, covering different roles, there comes a moment when you decide to pivot again and
Mhm.
create your own company, right?
Mhm.
Agency, Globia Content Marketing.
Mhm.
So, how is it the shift from
Mhm.
working on the vendor side or
Mhm.
within an LSP to
Mhm.
working as a consultant?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will start the start of my journey as an entrepreneur came after I actually left the localization industry. So RWS bought SDL and the marketing department got reduced, and a number of us, I think 15 of us, were let go.
Mm-hmm.
And I took another job as a content marketer in SaaS, in software. So I left the localization industry, and it only took me about 3 months to regret that. I mean, I think that most of us love the industry enough that when and if we do leave it, we want to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So when that job ended, I was looking for other employment and looking at localization companies and looking everywhere around. And localization companies weren't hiring content marketers. But I knew from my network that each of them, many of them needed help with content marketing. They needed help creating content. They needed help defining the programs, planning the programs. And so I have to credit one of my connections on LinkedIn, who has been my biggest supporter and my best client. I might need to not say who she is, but if she listens, she'll know who she is. And she hired me. She was my first client. And so with her, I began developing what fractional content marketing looks like. And that's the word that's being used commonly in the industry for a professional who comes in for a longer term to handle a program, the fractional. So with her, it became really clear that I could do it. I could do it for multiple clients. I could add value. I understood the problems. And then from there, it was just marketing and defining my service offering and figuring out how to run a business. You asked me how it's different from being an employee, and it's
Mm-hmm.
vastly different. Um, what maybe people don't realize about becoming a consultant and opening up your own business is that you only get to spend half of the time on the craft, on the practice. The
Mm-hmm.
other half of the time you have to spend building your business. So marketing, admin, um, statements of work, proposals, business development, and it's fully half and half. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
surprise for people. Um, and the thing I think that I love the most is that I get to choose to work with the best people. If there's not a connection between myself and a customer, we don't have to agree to work together. And
Okay.
all my clients are really excited to work with me. And that there's so much freedom in that. I'm not working for people I don't love to work with, and I'm not doing work that I'm not good at. And because I'm my own manager, I choose to do work I'm good at. Whereas when you're working for another company, you often get an assignment that's not amazing for you. And then you do it because it's part of your job. But it's different when you're a consultant.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the freedom, but you also have a lot of responsibility, right?
A
Because,
lot.
yeah,
Mhm,
you have to really
mhm,
identify, as you say, uh, getting to the right clients for you so that you really enjoy your daily hours spent creating
mhm.
your business.
It's not for everyone. And the amount of
Mm.
time that you need to spend to develop business and manage your business is not trivial. So anybody who's listening, if you're thinking about running your own business, know that you're going to have to learn how to run a business and spend half your time on your business. It's also important to know that it's it's difficult and maybe ill-advised to try to go out as a consultant before you really understand your
Mm.
craft. And you can't do that if you're 25.
Yeah.
So, and this may be controversial, but you need to become an expert before you can offer your services to somebody and expect them to pay you for it. So it's not something you do early in your career. It's a later in your career move, in my experience.
Yeah, definitely. You had the knowledge of how the industry operates, the
Mhm.
client needs and different aspects from multiple LSPs. So that's a huge background. And as you well say, a very young person with 25 years old doesn't
Mhm.
have that background.
No. I'm not saying they don't have expertise to provide to somebody as a consultant, but the breadth
Hmm.
of knowledge of an industry or of the profession comes with age. It comes with experience. I
Exactly.
don't want to say it
Yeah.
comes with age because we're not old. It comes with experience.
Exactly. Yeah. And talking about time management, because when you work for a company, you've got a fixed schedule, right? 9 to 5 or whatever it is. But
Mhm.
then when you are your own boss, to say so, how do
Mhm.
you handle your time? How
Mhm.
difficult is it to balance between your business, which you love, because you've already mentioned that you work with clients that you really enjoy, and your personal life?
Mhm. I have worked from home remotely for 15 or 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's the first part of it is working from home and having that full-time blend between work and home. Um, I don't sit at my desk all day long. I get up, I do the laundry, I go run an errand, I spend time with my son. Um, it is not about balance at all. It's more of a blend and boundaries. So
Mm-hmm.
that's to say that, you know, I'm not actually sure how many hours I work a week. I can tell you how much I work for my clients, but I'm thinking about my business on Saturdays. I'm doing something, I'm invoicing on Sundays, but it's boundaries. So
Mm-hmm.
as an entrepreneur and as someone who works from home, even, you have to say, this is what I do at this time, but I don't do this, or this is how I give my time, but I don't do it this way, or these are the things I agree to do, but I don't do that. It's about setting boundaries so that you can stay sane and not overcommit and not be stressed out.
Yeah, I like a lot this perspective. Never thought of it. Instead of balancing, to say, put your boundaries between personal and professional life. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. That's
Mm-hmm.
great.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, talking about upskilling, could you just maybe share with us what types of upskilling uh, does a person from the localization industry have? What would be the channels where we can upskill?
Mm-hmm. Good question. I've thought about this a lot. Other people have asked me this question. So the first thing is that many companies provide a training budget. So they have money and they give money to their employees, and it could be $1,000 to $5,000. Please use that.
Yeah, I
Find
like
a
that you
course to
mentioned that
take,
because
yeah,
many people don't know about it,
or they don't use it.
or you don't
Please
use
use it. Find a course to take, find books to buy, find things that interest you related to the business, and use that.
it. Yeah.
Talk to lots of people about what they do and find out what interests you. That's one way is use the budget. We talked about networking. Another way is to volunteer yourself for stretch assignments. A stretch assignment is something that's a little bit harder or a little bit beyond your knowledge. Volunteer for that,
Mm-hmm.
and you can grow by doing it. Another way to upskill is to establish a mentorship relationship, and someone further along in their career could mentor you and help you understand where to go to get the knowledge. So find somebody that you admire and ask them if they would mentor you. I'm not talking about hours per week. I'm talking about, a touch base once a month. Many
Mm-hmm.
people are willing to mentor younger people and get their guidance on how to upskill. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea because I think
Mhm.
it's very important also to share knowledge, right? And to, as you mentioned, to guide the younger generation or new talents
Mhm.
joining the industry. So I think that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah. And most people are more than happy to help. There are many people who have helped me, and I like to pay it forward when I can. And yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I'm really happy that you mentioned this. And
Mhm.
if we were to speak about content marketing,
Mhm.
uh, how do you find the ideas to write your content? Apart
Mhm.
from AI, you mentioned
Question.
already, but
Yeah. And because I've been in the industry for so long, I don't need AI. How do I find the ideas? I come to understand the business and the problems they solve for their customers. You also have to come to understand what the company wants to talk about. How does a certain company want to be known in the industry? What topics are important to them? For me, because I've been in the industry for so long, that's enough, and the topics just rise. But it's also fun to get into a group of people and you describe, this is the point of view we have, these are the customer problems, this is who our C-level wants to speak about, and then brainstorm. So, and there's never a lack of topics. There's never a lack of things to talk about. Another very interesting thing to do is competitor content research. Look at all your competitors and see what they're talking about, either with a view to talking about the same thing slightly differently, or identifying things to talk about that they don't cover at all.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, and now that we're getting closer to the end of the interview, I would just like to summarize for the audience. Maybe you could share 3 main takeaways from your professional career. What would those be? Takeaways or learnings? What would those be?
As far as the localization industry?
Yes.
Yeah. The first one is be curious about culture and language. Learn how to be a world citizen so you can work well with people across the globe, so you can understand the importance of translation. That's a foundation, is be curious about culture and language. Upskill, and we've talked about that extensively. As you go along, find different things you can learn, find different ways you can contribute. I talk to some people who are frustrated where their career is, and they often haven't taken advantage of or tried to upskill. And a lot of people only upskill when it's literally critical. So don't wait, do it proactively. It's critical when you get laid off, or it's critical when, there are certain points where you don't have any choice. Don't wait, is my advice. Network, connect with people all over your company, and even in the industry on LinkedIn. That's valuable, both internal to the company and externally.
Definitely surround you with people that can really have an impact, and you can also have an impact on their life or on their business.
It's mutual, right? The people that you connect with on social networks, make sure it's a mutually beneficial.
That's great. Thank you so much. I really like the takeaways and learnings. And before we really close the interview, can you just let the audience know where they can find you and the Globia? Maybe you want to share the website, or where can people follow you? Because I know personally you're very active on LinkedIn. I like to follow your content. But if there are any other social media channels, can you let us know where we can follow you?
Yeah, I'm only active on LinkedIn. In my view, do one channel well, don't do them all. So please find me on there. And my website is globiacontent.com, and you can connect with me there. But if you send me a direct message, I'll respond on LinkedIn.
Yes, I really encourage people to reach out to you, because for me it was such a nice experience to get in contact with you and to follow your content. So thank you so much once again for your time, and being so open to share your professional experience with us, and looking forward to, who knows, maybe a new episode.
At a year after starting the business, we can talk. I'll tell you how it went.
Perfect. Would love that. Thank you so much, Lee. Take care, and we keep in touch.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. I invite you to follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and all other major platforms. Subscribe, but also share it with persons who might find it useful.